My right, not your right. Just to clarify. There we go. Cool. If you can't see my screen, too bad. I'm sharing it. So yes, welcome to the latest Manchester local user group. It's local, yet we have someone in Finland and someone in Luton. That's how local we are. We're all one local community. You may also see some really bad photoshopping on these slides, as I did them about 5 minutes ago. Just kidding. So let's take a look. So today's agenda, we have welcome and introductions. I was kind of hoping for a few more people here, so I'm not really sure we're going to do the introductions, but it's all good. Then we have two awesome talks, one by Antti on project operations and one by Jesse on mixed reality and canvas apps. I'm looking forward to both of them quite thoroughly. Then we'll close down the meeting at the end, and we also have a virtual pub set up for anyone that would like to attend, if you are interested. So, news. We have a new user group. You may have seen the I won't call it a demise, but a change of business priorities for Dynamics communities, now called the Dynamics Accelerated Community or Decision Accelerated Community, something like that. They are no longer doing user groups, which is where we used to be housed. They are now focusing on other events, in-person events and other things. So Microsoft have launched their user groups, and that's where we are now based. So anyone that did register, fantastic. You've gotten here, and that's great. If you haven't registered, here is the link to the new user group. It is a Dynamics Communities or a community user group. We can post things on there. This is where all our event registrations will be, so you'll be able to see upcoming events, and you'll be able to chat and ask questions, and we'll probably post slides and links to videos there afterwards as well. So it's the one-stop shop for everything you need. You can either use that link there, or you can use a QR code. Yeah, it's a great QR code, Joe. That I really wanted to use this. This is the QR code that is inbuilt into Google Chrome now. So when you're on a web page, there's an option in the browser to just create a QR code from the web page that you're on, and it creates a tiny little dinosaur. So that's awesome. The other news to be aware of is South Coast Summit is coming up at the end of the year. If I was a smart man, I would have put the date on this, but I'm sure someone will jump in and tell me what the date is, or you can just go to southcoastsummit.com and find out the date. It is the first in-person event post-pandemic, happening in the south coast of England at the end of this year. Again, feel free to jump in and tell me the dates or the place, or just go to the link and it's all fine. Right, that's the news. I should become a newsreader, I think. I do great.
So you can tell how fast my Google skills are. 16th of October.
16th of October. So yeah, I'm not going to South Coast Summit for obvious reasons. So today we do have a couple of people. I'll go through this. I'll then pick on probably Paddy, because Paddy's always up for something. So just do some introductions just to get to know each other. So name, company role. Did you attend a UG conference in the past year? I really should have updated that one. What do you hope to gain from today's meeting? What is the first place you want to visit when you can freely travel again? So me, I'm Matt Collins-Jones, MCJ. I'm a solution architect at TSG. Did I attend a UG conference? Yes, I did. I've attended hundreds of them because they're all virtual, and you can go. I was literally in Philadelphia like a week ago, not physically, just spiritually, and presentingly with Cookie Carl Coxon. What do I hope to gain for today's meeting? Well, I have been fans of Jesse and Antti for some time now. I've never had the opportunity to see either of them speak. And then when they said yes, it was like a dream came true to me. And then when they told me what they wanted to talk about, I went, oh my God, let's definitely do that. And they very humbly agreed. So that's what I want to get out of this meeting today. And the first place I want to visit when I can freely travel, I want to go back to where I had my honeymoon. It's a hotel in Gran Canaria, where me and my wife have spent several holidays, and it's our happy place. It's the place we always think of, the place we always want to go back to. And it's just a lovely place to be and just relax and just read every book on your Kindle that you've got. My Kindle has become like like my game library. Has hundreds of books that I've never read and have every intention of reading, but then never do. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that. But yeah, if people want to introduce themselves, that would be great. If you don't, then I'm just going to say, hey, Paddy, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'll introduce myself. Well, I wanted to be introduced. I'm Paddy, Paddy Byrne. I work at Incremental Group Limited. I'm a senior Dynamics consultant, and I also do a bit of Power Platform as well. Did I attend a UG conference or event last year? I haven't. No, I've never attended a UG conference. Oh no, I've attended events. I've attended these events and the Birmingham events. I've never attended a conference, because they're not always on like during the day on a Thursday. I've always looked at them on a Thursday and I just can't afford the time off. Yeah. But I look forward to some point. Today's meeting, I've been kind of seeing Antti's posts about his F&O journey and how he combines, how he's been learning F&O, and I just think that's really interesting. So I'm looking forward to hear a wee bit about his project operations you're doing. But I'm hoping to see some of that gap being bridged live. So looking forward to hear a bit about that. And the first place I want to visit when I can freely travel is I want to go to the Algarve skydiving. There's a surprise. Although it's between that or I really want to go to Ibiza. I used to go to Ibiza every year when I was even in my 30s. Before I had a family, up to 33, I went to Ibiza every year and it was great. And I kind of stopped going, and now I just want to go back just to lose myself amongst the crowd to sweaty people.
Yeah, that sounds like hell to me. First
jumping out. Not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah, first jumping out of plane and then being in a crowd full of sweaty people. Yeah, no, I'm good, man. I'm gonna go back to my luxury resort, and yeah, that's fine. I'm good. If anyone else would like to introduce yourselves, that's fine. If not, we can just carry on. Yeah, let's carry on. Jet Social, hashtags for today, hashtag D365 UG MCR, and we have updated our Twitter handle. It's now the D365 MCR UK. If you would like to follow us on social media. And with that, I will stop talking, and I will hand over to the one and only Antti, who's going to talk to us something about project operations, and I'm really looking forward to it. And just yes.
Yay! Awesome. Thanks for having me. Thanks for organizing this. Happy to see the UGs kind of transform over to the Microsoft side and then them being active. Not being sarcastic and like not putting UG down or anything. Not that's not my intention. But happy to see like the UG concept Microsoft get a grip of the UG concept and for these to start forming. We've also been doing some work in Finland around these. So yeah, I mean, I guess like a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people know the monkey. I'm the monkey. My name is Antti. I come from Finland and been working primarily with CRM. I still call it CRM. I think it's still the most descriptive name for that product, and primarily with project operations. So I've done more PSA, which is the predecessor of project operations, more that than I have done customer service or sales or field service combined. So that's really always been my I've always had an affection for that, and it goes back years when I was not able to get Microsoft Project on Mac, and I would have needed it. When PSA came out, that was sort of would have solved all my problems that I had earlier. But not going to talk about my history or me let's jump into the day's topic. This is like semi-structured. So I have a couple of slides that I think are good to explain what this is, because I'm a visual person. With that, I mean that I need to see things so that I can comprehend things. So that's why I like to show stuff. Then I will have a demo. I was actually thinking, because we're a dynamic crowd, we could I could show you stuff that you guys want to see, not something that I've planned, but something you don't like, something you want to see. What are your questions? What are those things that you want to see? Like Patty, you said, how do you bridge that gap between CRM and F&O? Like maybe that's something that we want to look at, and not just have like an end-to-end demo that I do every single time. But with that, let me share my screen first. So that's what we have to do to get started. And I am just like, I'm rambling. I'm going to go through stuff super fast because I have there's just so much stuff to talk about, to be honest. This product is so immense these days that I could spend days talking about it. So I already gave the introductions. I got these cool badges. They make me feel good. They make me feel a bit like a better person. So, all right. So what is project operations? Like in a nutshell, like in a few sentences, it is an end-to-end professional services automation application to better serve project-centric organizations as a unified application. What that means is the majority of you people are consultants. You are in professional services, so you know the tricks of the trade, right? So, you log time entries. You need to run. You're on projects. Someone needs to manage those projects. You log your time entries so that your employer or you get money. You might do fixed price stuff. On occasion, you might sell materials for some reason. Maybe you sell maybe some of you guys are old school. You sell a server. That's a product you sell. It's still professional services. You go in and install that. So that's what project operations is about. It covers a ton of processes on a high level. If you think of companies, if you think of the professional services business you're in, exclude HR, but think of the process, how it starts from how do you get customers, how do you convert those customers into deals, then build those into projects, then deliver those projects and invoice. That's project operations. In a common terminology, it is an ERP. It's built on three different things. Built on what was known as project service automation. It's also built on Project for the Web, which is the successor of Microsoft Project, and it's built on Dynamics 365 Finance. So it's really a combination of three different tools formed into a single application and offering. I'm not going to touch on these. It's tailored for different roles. I already mentioned that professional services, so I will assume that you have an understanding of what professional services organizations are like, so you'll understand the roles in a professional services organization. All right, so how do we get that? So there's three different deployment methods, three different options for getting it. There's what we know as a light deployment, which matches what we used to know as project service automation. That is on like CRM only. That's Dataverse only, nothing else. It's just on Dataverse and that's it. There is an integrated deployment that consists of a deployment on Dataverse as well as on finance and operations. The integrated deployment is hooked together via dual write. That's the hero story. So that's what Microsoft is really driving, and that's what Microsoft wants to sell. That's the future holy grail of project of professional services automation applications. So the focus is on that's like the big thing. That's what we would love to deploy. Has the biggest projects, that has the biggest deals. But the reality might be that a lot of times, in my experience at least, the majority of projects might actually be light deployment only, or what are known as F&O only. It's this last, I don't know if you see my mouse, maybe you do, the stock production order scenarios deployment, which is that third deployment option, which is F&O only. This third deployment for F&O only is something that I do not talk about, simply due to the fact that I am not an ERP person. I literally do not know a lot about F&O. My background is with CRM. So talking about an F&O only deployment is beyond my skill sets, and most likely will for several years to come be. So I focus on light and integrated when it comes to solution architecture on the Dataverse side. So if some of you has F&O only questions, I'm not the right person to answer those. I'm just going to be, straightforward and honest about that. I pretty much covered the three different options. Like before MCJ punched recording, Joe had an interesting point that he said that in his experience, the majority of deployments are probably light. I do feel the same way. That is also my experience. Then again, project operations is less than a year old, and I've been on 2 projects myself. One of them is integrated, and one of them is light. But looking at PSA, that deployment was usually just CRM or CDS only. So that light deployment is definitely, it's the easiest to deploy. It's the fastest to deploy. It solves a lot of the needs. The integrated deployment would need always, if it's a greenfield project and you're deploying integrated, you're deploying Dataverse and F&O. The first thing that you would deploy when you deploy F&O is finance. So given the size, depending on the size of the company, you will be deploying finance between maybe 6 months to a year, averaging maybe, like just off the top of my head, 200-300 man days for that finance project. After that, you will be deploying project operations capabilities. So you're looking at pretty big projects. You're looking at projects that are between 9 months and 1.5 years easily if you think of project operations integrated. So that's why I'm saying, there aren't that many integrated deployments per se in the world because they are just not finished yet. I know of a couple that are, but it's just such a new product that there aren't that many projects out there just yet. So SKU placement, I'm not going to touch on pricing that much. It is based on an operations SKU with a 20-seat minimum at $120 per user per month. There at the moment is no Dataverse only SKU that exists, which is something that I know business planning is considering. It is the most upvoted idea on Experience Dynamics Com to get a Dataverse only SKU. So if you feel passionate about that, please do go vote it up. That is the only way we can, get that message to business planning for them to have that SKU available. So my thinking for today was that, and MCJ, just please cut me off, give me like a 5-minute warning when I'm done, because I can just go on and on and just ramble about this stuff. So my thinking for today was that I'd kind of touch on, the flow of project contracts to project contracts and finance to time entries to the actuals, which are financial data, to billing backlog, to pro forma invoices, to integration journals and invoice proposals in F&O. And I was thinking revenue recognition, but I think that's something we can skip for that. Now, that was my thinking for demos. I do have 2 other things that I would really like to talk about. They are the scheduling modes, which are net new, just like 2 weeks old, and the scheduling APIs, which I've finally gotten to work low code. So I'll kind of actually just kind of pass this ball to you guys as an audience, and feel free to unmute yourselves what are some of the things that you would like to see in project operations? Or if you're new to project operations and you just want to see the end-to-end flow, let me know. If you have some experience, if you're thinking about some specific areas, what are some of the things you'd like to see?
I've not seen any of it really. So like the whole flow of it, even if it's just more of a high level, I'm happy with. The scheduling stuff I'm really interested in. I come from a background of scheduling field engineers, so kind of like, field service, but doing it in the old CRM, 2011, 2013, with the old scheduling engine. So seeing if there's a proper scheduling thing in PSA, project operations, that would be awesome to take a look at, see how that works.
All right.
Yeah,
cool.
me too as well. The first time I used PSA was when I first got into Dynamics, and it had just come out, and I tried to do a project for an event company, and they had like 500 items in the event kind of to-do list and things to schedule, and the whole thing just fell apart. So we had to ditch that and we built something custom. But I've been hearing through Joe about yourself that it's kind of come on leaps and bounds, which it must have to be getting replaced. So I'd be really interested in seeing kind of where it's at now from where I saw it years and years ago when it was less than a few months old. And the scheduling, big point on the scheduling.
Cool. And with scheduling, do you both mean like project scheduling or around resources? What's on top of your mind?
I was thinking more resources. Honestly, just because I don't know enough about project operations, so I don't even know what project scheduling is.
Cool. Fair enough. All right, I'll cover both. So all right, so let's get started. Let's jump into projects. So the kind of the flow that I'm going to go through is we have an existing customer. Our existing customer, Alorem, wants to implement CRM, and we've landed the deal. So what we need to do is make a contract with Alorem for that CRM implementation, and based on that contract, we'll then build a project. It'll be a short project, like 2 or 3 tasks, because time constraints. And then for that project, we'll do resource planning or resource management. We'll plan resources on that project, and then we'll deliver the project by submitting time entries. We'll see how that gets carried over to F&O and kind of what the steps are. So let's get started with creating a new project contract. So a project contract is a container for financial data. So it's that, think of it as that piece of paper that you sign with a customer when you land a deal. You sign it, your customer signs it. It's that consulting contract. This is what project contract is a equivalent to. So let's call this project for Alorem, and I'll choose a customer as Alorem. It'll be interesting to see how we can do resource scheduling in my integrated. I've not prepared any resources, but I've got some backup environments just in case to show that. So I'm going to fill some mandatory information here. I'm not going to pay attention to some of these fields like requested delivery date and whatnot. They're not relevant for us now, and they would be a totally different presentation and conversation. This will take a bit of time, so we have a combination of a slower system due to dual write. It's not a lot slower, but it is slower than Dataverse only. And for some reason, when I'm running Chrome, I don't know if this is an old thing or a new thing. My browser is just slower when I'm sharing my screen. I've noticed that over the past few weeks.
So can I just ask a question on that, on the dual write, Antti? It's actually literally waiting for the transaction to be committed on the finance side before it will save down on CRM.
It was, yes. So it was going over to F&O. Sometimes it's faster. Sometimes it's slower. It can be very fast, or it can take a few minutes. I can see like for some reason when I haven't played around with, and naturally, I have a sandbox. I don't have a production, so it's a T2. So it's not like the fastest fastest out there, but it does go to F&O. So if I look at my if we look at this order right here, how it's created in Dataverse, and if we were to look for that order in finance and operations, I'm not actually entirely sure how we navigate to orders, and this is a slow. Let's actually look at it from a project's contract, from a project's context. I don't feel like playing around too much with this, but it does get carried over to F&O. So the records that we create do get carried over to F&O. So moving on, what I'm going to do next is for that signed order, we've defined that implementation for a LORM is time and material based. Order line. Having trouble talking and typing at the same time. So the two possibilities that we have are TM and fixed price. So the order line that we're creating defines whether the project that we're running is based on a fixed price or a time and material component. Now we can have two. Our order can be fixed price for X and then TM for the rest. So that's definitely possible. For the sake of example and for the sake of brevity, I'll just make it for TM, time and material for now. Material handling is new. That is non-stock materials. I'm not going to dive into that because that would be a deeper dive thing. And task-based billing is new as well. It essentially means that if let's say we have 6 tasks on our project, maybe those 3 tasks are, we want to make those 3 tasks non-chargeable, and then the remaining 3 tasks chargeable. We could define that by using what's known as task-based billing. But for now, we'll leave everything as chargeable. So we'll just create a very, very basic container for us so that we can get our finances, project finances moving. We can create financial data that we can invoice from a customer. So let me actually do this. Let's next create that. Let's next create that project. So I'm a sales manager and I'm creating that order. And what I'm going to tell my PM is, hey, Mr. or Mrs. PM, what we're going to need is a project from you so that we can tie that project to our contract. So what Mr. or Mrs. PM does is they will create a brief project plan. So I hopped over to project and I'm going to create it for a LORM. I just got to make sure really quick that I actually did choose a LORM as a customer so that I don't have an oopsie here. I do, yes. So I'm going to create a project for a LORM, and I'm going to save that record. This gets immediately transported over to Dynamics 365. Well, what do you want to call it? Project operations or finance. I just call it F&O for clarity. So if I hop over to F&O and I punch in projects, or actually project management and accounting projects. What we'll see is this project has now appeared in F&O. And this is a shocker for many F&O people. They're like, well, can I interact with this project in F&O? I was like, no. If you click on the project, it'll take you to Dataverse. So it literally resides in Dataverse. And that's where we interact with that project. And the same goes for the project contract that we can see right here. If I click on it, it'll take us to Dataverse. So for now, let's move on and let's create a very basic project plan consisting of 2 tasks. So this is where we'll see project for the web, and we'll just call this define, and we'll make this start on the 31st and finish on the 1st. We'll show effort as well, and then another task is implement. And implementation will be the 2nd and the 3rd. So the fastest project operations project ever. And as a project manager, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it what's known as a generic resource on this task, on these tasks, because I don't know who's going to actually deliver this project just yet. Remember, we're building that contract. We're not managing the project just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a generic resource. So that's a placeholder. And I will create it for a role of, let's call it accounting lead or consulting lead for the first task. And then for the second task, let's say that a project manager is actually going to do the implementation. So let's make this really interesting, right? So these two roles, generic roles, are needed for these two tasks. So as a PM, that's all I really need to do right now. I have a high level project plan in place, and as that sales guy, that account manager, what I can do is I hop back over to my order line. I can now tie that project to my project contract. Project contract and order are synonymous. So order is the table, project contract is what it's called in project operations. And now that I have the project tied to this order, I could actually begin delivery. So I could say, consultants, do your tasks, log your time, and whatnot, and yada, yada, yada. I've not done resource planning, so, no one would know what project they're on. But still, it will be possible to create financial data at this point because we have an order and we have a project. So next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the details that we created on that project on my order so that I'll get a more structured order with some pinpointed details. So what I'll get here is those two tasks for that role of consulting lead and project manager, 16 hours, hourly price. That's a sweet hourly price, and hourly price, and the total value for that, for both roles. So this is how I now have so hopping back over to the general tab, this is how I now have a contracted amount of about 10K. So my contract is worth 10K, right? It's built. Mr. or Mrs. Customer, here you go, sign it. Let's begin our implementation. So our contract is done. Our next step is to actually find those resources. So hopping back over to our project, sales manager work is done. I'm now the PM. I want to find resources. What I'm going to do is, now that I have these two generic resources defined, I know that it's consulting lead and PM. I'm not going to set any skills or characteristics. So I'm not going to say like how proficient they have to be, or if they need certifications or any of that. That's definitely possible. That's basic universal resource scheduling, basic URS, but we're not going to touch on that now. So instead, I'm going to hop on the team tab, and I'm going to create a resource requirement. So generating a requirement for the PM role will now create a requirement that I can go out and look for resources against. So having this resource requirement created, I can now go to the schedule assistant by selecting this generic with that resource requirement and clicking on book, at which point URS is going to search for project managers in my organization that I could then book on a project. So the approach is very similar to field service. It's a bit different, but it's very similar in nature. And the thing here is, as I'm in my integrated, I might actually not have, I have myself, so we'll just have to, we'll just have to go with that. I don't have any other resources available. We would see them right here. So for the sake of example, I will book myself on this project by selecting myself, and clicking on book and exit. Now my brain is asking me if I actually am able to do this. Booking created successfully. I was, yes. So I am now booked as a PM on this project. So when I refresh this grid, we'll see that I have some hard book hours for 6 hours. Calendar templates are off because I only got 6, not 8. That's something that obviously happened. So maybe my work days are set at 6 hours and not 8 because I only got 6. So the next thing that I would need to do, I'm now booked on the project. I'm not actually booked on the task itself because project operations was not able to define on 100% certainty that I should be booked on task implement. It was not able to deduce that on 100% certainty. So it will not assume that that was my intent. It does not assume intent. So what I would now need to do is, as a PM, is actually, assign myself on that task, and we can remove the generic resource. I'm filling the task with an assignment. So this is an example of actually a pretty good example of I would say the complexity in bookings in general. The concept of booking someone and the concept of assigning someone are two different things. We book someone on a project. Hey, you're on this project for a year. That does not necessarily mean that that person has assignments on specific tasks. So what I did here is I booked myself on this implementation project. The system wasn't able to for certain say that I want to be on this task, so it just booked me on the project. And as a PM, I had to come in and say, all right, so Anti's going to be doing this task, so I'll assign him on this task. So I now have a booking and an assignment. So that is resource management and project planning in a nutshell. How are we on time? How much time do I have? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
About another 10 minutes, if that's all right.
10 minutes. That sounds good. So what we'll do next is we'll hop over to time entries. So I've created that project plan and the delivery phase begins. So as a consultant, or maybe, I am that PM. As a PM, I will now do PM work, implementation work against that task that I was just assigned on. So I'm going to create a time entry. So I'm going to look for that project. It was project implementation. I will look for the implement task. I'm doing that task as a PM. I won't fill these in because I won't need them. I'll click on save and I will submit my time entry for Thursday. Submit. Boom. My work here is done. So what happens next is the next step in the process. Submitted time needs to be approved. So, maybe a bit ironically, in this case, I'm also the approver because I'm the PM. But you get the idea. John Doe as a consultant might log time, and then I would approve that time as a project manager. So on approvals, I'll approve this time entry. I can see that it's chargeable. And what happens next is this approved time entry goes to what's known as a billing backlog. So when we want to invoice these approved time entries, we have to groom our billing backlog. And we have really, we have a couple of different options how we can get the approved time entry on an invoice. The first thing that we do need to do is that grooming. So we need to say that the time entry that we have just approved, which is right here, it is it this one? Yes, it is. It is ready for invoice. It is ready to be invoiced. So I'm going to group the backlog and say it's ready to invoice. And after I've done that, I would have two options: automated invoicing based on what are called invoice schedules, or manual invoicing from the context of a project contract. Those schedules are a bit, like, I call them level 400 stuff. They're fairly, in my opinion, complicated, level 300 at least. So we'll just show the manual invoicing. So now that the time has been submitted and approved, the backlog has been groomed. We can get our time entry on an invoice and create an invoice from our project contract. So I'm going to hop back over to the project contract that we created. It is right here, Alorum, and I'm going to click on Create Invoice. What we'll get is what's called a proforma invoice. So invoicing always, in an integrated deployment, invoicing is always initiated from Dataverse, always. And as that invoice is created, we can see it has a value of 200, has the value of 200. We can see it's just fine. We'll click on Confirm, boom, proforma invoicing is done. As a project manager, my responsibilities are over. Some scenarios, maybe this is accounts receivable. That's fine, depends on a company's process. A lot of times it is the PM who does invoicing. So my job here is done. The next thing that happens is project accountants. So the project accountant role kicks in, and the project accountant hops over to finance and operations. Let's go on the landing page to get this all beautiful and kind of start from scratch. So from our landing page, we'll go to what are known as Project Operations Integration Journal. So the data that we pushed over lands in what is called a Project Operations Integration Journal. And by viewing that, we can, click on the journal and click on lines right here. We can see the details that it consists of. So we have a cost component of $95 and a sales component of $200. So at this point, our project accountant could do, they could set sales tax groups if they would, if that would be a manual thing. Usually those would be, sales tax groups would be automated, but I could do that at this point. So VAT does not belong, and sales tax doesn't belong in Dataverse. Like, just forget about it. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this integration journal. And when I post the integration journal, I can then, as a project accountant, go to my next step as the processing is done. Here we go. That was fast. I've been using F&O today, so it was fast. So I can close out of here. What I love about F, this is one of those small things I like about F&O. I can just press escape. Boom. I can't do that on Dataverse. Magic. So what I'll do next is, now that that integration journal is posted, so Dual Write has carried that information to what's known as a staging table. And from that staging table, I've pulled the entries to an integration journal. And as I've posted it, what happens next is a project invoice proposal. And that project invoice proposal is actually right here. It should have a value of, no, it's right here. It is right here. It should have a value of 200. Here we go. I was like, hey, what do I have going on now? So it gets the line amount. It only had a header. The invoice lines get created / populated, and the status is open. So what I would do here with my project invoice proposal is I would post it, and I'm not going to print it because that'll just slow this down. I'll post it, and it'll say invoiced. So from our project invoice proposal, what I could do is hop over to the actual invoice, and I can just, go from my navigation to project invoices, or click on this link right here. So I can just go to project invoices. And the invoice that I have would be would be this one. Now, if I wanted to credit this invoice, that credit process would originate from Dataverse. I'd go to Dataverse to that Performa invoice and click on correct this invoice, and it would initiate a correction process and create reversals for these. So that's how I would do the crediting process. So this is, in a nutshell, a very, very short end-to-end process, like super short, super fast. Project contract for financials, project resourcing a project, a couple of tasks on a project. How do we submit time entries? How do we approve them? How do we groom our billing backlog? How do we push those approved time entries on a Performa invoice, confirm that invoice, and then do our magic in F&O as a project accountant? So these are sort of those specific steps. Anyone with any questions? I might have a few minutes. I'm not going to cover some of those topics I was planning on. So schedule APIs, we probably won't have time to cover today. Any questions? Just, fire them off.
I have a question, just because, as you say, a lot of us deal with projects and invoicing and billing, and it's never super seamless, at least for all the organizations I've worked with. And each organization wants to do it differently. In terms of the invoicing, maybe I missed it, or when I was trying to tweet all your awesome things here and try and take it in, but does it just invoice the total amount, or can you invoice monthly, excuse me, based on like time and material? So you know that someone's going to work for say 20 days out of a month. You want to bill those 20 days. Can you bill those 20 days as a chunk at the end, and then like continuing to do that like monthly billing? And the second part of the question is, can you configure the rules as well? Because we have some customers that are like, right, okay, we want to take this product, but we don't want to pay the deposit because we're already partway through a project. So why do we have to stump up 10, 20% when we're already like 200 days in? Can you like configure the billing to kind of automate those things and configure them slightly differently for different customers, or different rules or things like that?
Yeah, good questions. So what we want to bill per se is defined by the billing backlog, and we have that for fixed price. We have those for advances and retainers, for advance payments, and we have those for T&M, for time expense, as well as non-stock materials. So whatever I define here as ready to invoice or not ready to invoice will eventually be picked up on a Performa invoice when one is created. So for example, for these, if I set these all as ready to invoice and I create a Performa invoice manually from the context of a project contract, they'd all get picked up because they've been marked as ready to invoice. Now, maybe some of these, maybe there's entries here for the month of May, like we just had, and maybe the month of May should not be invoiced just yet. So the answer to that would be, don't set the month of May time entries as ready to invoice. Now, it is a bit of tedious manual labor, but that is really the only way that we can get granular with what we want to invoice or not. So then the second part is, if I would, why would I have 200 customers? Do I really need to go over to each project contract and click on ready to create an invoice? No, not necessarily. So on each order, which was synonymous with project contract, on each project contract, we can define what are known as invoice schedules. They're called slightly different for milestones, but for time and material, they're invoice frequencies and invoice schedules, or invoice schedules that follow an invoice frequency. And the frequency can be, for example, first of month. So if I would create a schedule for first of month, then this customer would get a performa invoice created, or this order would get a performa invoice created on the first of month for every time entry that has been set as ready to approve. And for customer B, that could be the 15th of the month for another order. So it's always specific to the project that we're on. Actually, I think it's specific to the order line that we're on, to be honest. So that's like a yes and yes question. It doesn't have like a lot of small details and possibilities on the schedule. Like, for example, send an invoice every third week is something we can't do. So it's like we can't set it as every third week unless we do some sort of wicked code stuff. So that would be like Joe would do that.
Always get Joe to do that. I get Joe to do a lot of things.
So really, like one thing I just like I promised I'd show them. They're I think they show potential. Let me really quickly on my other environment just show the push notifications. Like this is out of context in some sense, but in some sense it isn't. So I have a project template that I've created, and I'm going to break the best practices of everything, and I have a synchronous flow that runs. Just going to respond with a 200 pretty soon. So I just tried it, so it does succeed. So if it doesn't succeed, then it's on, like, it doesn't like Manchester in that case. It's not the fastest flow for some reason. It's takes about a minute to run. It has a few loops in it.
Antti,
Yep.
I remember when I was looking at this. Yeah, it was quite a while ago. There was an app that was where people could go and find resources and projects, and I'm pretty sure it was partnered and it got ditched. Is there any equivalent in, like, I'm guessing there's a lot of scope for Canvas apps for people to do time entry and stuff without actually going into Dynamics itself, maybe on the phone and track your time entries and be more interactive?
Right. So let me answer that in a sec. So we'll have the Scott Duro Smart Ribbon buttons reply right here. We have a project with tasks created, and so this is something that I'm not seeing the push or the notification right away, and I'm not seeing it if I navigate somewhere on the. Oh, here it is. Now it came up. All right. So this is the new push out of the box notification stuff. Oh, that has potential. It sticks. It sticks right here. I could have a hyperlink here and just click on that and land somewhere. That's pretty cool. So there used to be a find me, like, search for available resources on mobile. That has been deprecated for like probably 2-3 years ago or something. There is a concept of centralized resourcing in which project managers submit resource requests and resource managers find the resources that are suitable for those requests. For time and expense, right now, if you like the old Dynamics, like CRM Dynamics application works for time entries for project operations. F&O has a Xamarin app for expenses that I've never used. If you wanted something a bit more fancier and easier to use, you would need to create a Canvas app for that. But I know the product. I think it's openly on the roadmap that the product team is looking into mobile applications. So I wouldn't invest too much time in that. I mean, if you can build something in 5 days, then maybe that'll get you over. Fine, but like don't spend tens of days on something custom, because the product team will ship something and then you'll just bang your head against the wall for spending tens of days in creating something. All right, I think this is probably my time to pass the shop floor to our next awesome speaker.
Yeah, I'm not paying for any of this extra time, Antti. This is definite scope creep, and at £450 an hour, dollars an hour, I'm definitely not paying for it. So, but no, thank you very much. That was very educational. I looked at PSA again a few years ago. I've never seen project operations. That kind of all makes sense to me because I work with projects, but it's really good to see how all these things are put together and kind of know what it does. So thank you very much for that.
My pleasure. And always just want to say this is open, still mic's still open. It's being recorded. Always more than happy to go over projects with anyone. If anyone has any questions, just reach out to me.
I will definitely take you up on that if I ever draw that short straw and get how to implement this and have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm definitely going to take you up on that one. Right, without further ado, thank you, Antti. Without further ado, we'll pass over to Jesse, who is going to show us some awesome things with mixed reality and canvas apps. Take it away, Jesse.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen. Let me pop this Teams chat over here. I'm going to move this up here as well. So yeah, I'm Jesse. I work at Avanade in the Power Platform. Do Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, all things data really. I'm the MVP recently, so as of last December. I also have a YouTube channel called Jesse's Power Channel, so do check that out. I try and post weekly. Sometimes I have loads of videos, sometimes I have none for a while, so I don't tell anyone that I post weekly because, yeah, when I find something cool to talk about. So today's session is going to look at mixed reality. So to start this session even, this is all on Canvas apps. I actually just like to start with the demo because you can actually see on the mobile what it's actually doing. So hopefully you can see my screen there. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of go into how these components are actually built. So to start with, it's so easy to build these apps, and I'm going to show you throughout this session how to do that. It's incredibly easy. So I'm not doing mass loads of coding or anything to achieve these, but essentially Power Apps to do mixed reality. There's a couple of features that it has. So I'll walk through those on this particular application. So it's a very simple app, nothing too fancy going on here. So if I first click on View 3D Content, I'm on a very old Android phone because my iPhone doesn't like connecting to this screen sharing application I have. So it's actually just a phone I keep in the cupboard. So yeah, I have found that it's a little bit slower on this device, but unfortunately I can't figure out a good app to get my iPhone connected. So you see there, so all this is at the moment is just a bunch of images, and I can rotate them on the screen. So we are going to walk through how to actually get images in the first place. But to start with, this could be a catalog of images. Say if you had a furniture store or Pokemon that you want to look at, whatever it is that you want to kind of see in this 3D way. You then have the feature, move that way, of dropping whatever image that you have into your space. So there's a component here, which I'm going to run through when we get there. So hopefully this loads. You basically get, this is my living room here, and it's telling me to point this device slowly left and right, and then I can tap it to place it. And in this way, so I'm a bit constrained because I'm attached to this wire, but if I wasn't, I would walk all the way around it. I could kind of look under it, see what it looks like, which could be quite useful. And actually some real life use cases for this, having spoken to people in the community and stuff, is people that were moving furniture in between doors and stuff, and you're just trying to figure out, is this actually going to fit in my room? That's quite cool. So that's the view in MR functionality. You've then got this thing called view shape in MR. And all it is that you can set a cube with a width, height, depth, and then unit measurement. So let's go for meters on this one. And then you can place this in your room. So this is quite good for quite similar, like if you've gone to like IKEA or whatever it is and you've seen something and you know the kind of rough measurements and you know how much space it actually is going to require for you to put that in your room. Similar. You can tap it. Oh, not take a picture. You can also take pictures, which I'll show you in a second, but that is actually quite big. So yeah, you can go around it and look at it and see if it fits, etc. You can also take a picture of that, whatever's on my screen. And I could, oh, that's weird. It should definitely be there. But yeah, it should be there. But then you could take this image and like save it somewhere and that kind of thing. So that's placing a cube. The last one here is measure in mixed reality. So I have this book here, which is, oh no, wait, you can see that. That's my camera. It's a farting animals coloring book. So I'm just going to place it on the floor and then I can pick what I measure in. So I'll go centimeters and I just want to do the distance. And then I'm going to measure this. And again, the point device, move it left and right for it to calibrate. And then if I go down to about there, and that says that's 30 centimeters. And that is an A4 book. I can't remember the exact measurement of an A4 height, but it is around 30 centimeters. So you can see that's actually pretty accurate. So that could be pretty useful if you're measuring a frame or something else where you need to know how much it is and you don't have a tape measure on you. So give me a second while I move this chair back, and now it's stuck. So yeah, that is 29.4, Rob says. So yeah, not too bad. If I get it really into like the corners, I probably would get 29.7. So yeah, 30, not too bad at all. So okay, so I'm going to disconnect this now and just close that down. So yeah, there's a few articles here. So the docs on Microsoft are pretty good. There's a couple of really good videos, actually. I have a video on this, but Daniel Christian has a good video and so does Reza. So I always like to call out different people in the community as well. As when I first gave this talk, I think probably like a while ago now. Yeah, Reza's talk really inspired me. So let's like start from the beginning, like how do we actually like build this app? So first we need some 3D images, right? So we've got a couple of different ways we can get them. So we can use something called Sketchfab. These are just different websites that have 3D models on them, or we can use a 3D builder. So let's have a look at both here. So this is the documentation. By the way, it's pretty good. It has a pretty comprehensive steps on there. Yeah, so Sketchfab is just a 3D model website. You can buy them essentially, but the models I picked up mostly were the free ones. So one of the reasons like that chair wouldn't drop, there was actually quite a bit of space around it, and that's because it's a free one. I didn't pay for it. So you do lose a bit of functionality, but I can pick up any of these different images. I can obviously buy them if I wanted to and download them. They do need to be in GLB format, which is just a format of 3D images. So you would need to do a conversion if needed. So that's something to look out for. And the other way is there is a 3D builder, which is a Microsoft app. So I actually downloaded that. So you can get it from the App Store or whatever it's called, the Windows Store. And what you can do is basically pick images. I'm not sure actually why I picked this one. I don't even know what it is. I can add an image, so I can look at what kind of things are available in here. So let's pick, that stencil's a bit weird. Let's go for one of the figurines maybe. Let's go for a rowing boat. So I can now put this in my room. I'm gonna save as, and then put it in this folder that I have. and I want it to be in GLB format. So I'm going to save that. So now I've got a 3D image to work with. So we're going to get that into our app. Now there's two different ways. So now we've got our 3D images. There's a few different ways of actually then storing the images. We need to obviously store them and then consume them in Power Apps. So the first way is to use SharePoint lists. So you basically add them as attachments. I'm sure you can use a file library as well, but this particular way I've done it is using a SharePoint list, and then you essentially call that from Power Apps. So I have a SharePoint list which I've set up, and in here, if you click on this, for example, I essentially have the chair GLB file in my attachments. So I'm going to go ahead and add that rowing boat. So I'll say I want to show the rowing boat. I'm going to add it in and put it in there. So let's go ahead and actually just open up an app. So I'm going to start a blank app. Let's go phone layout. Oh, the other thing, obviously, it might be obvious, but you can't really test this in the browser. So you do need to constantly publish and then go to your phone or other device to do that. So the first thing I need is obviously I need this data set in my Power App. So I'm going to bring that in. So I don't really have too many sites in here, so I should find that fairly easy. So I've now got my 3D models in here. I'm now going to insert a very, let's do this one. So when you look at the different components that are available in mixed reality, you have view in mixed reality, view shape in mixed reality, measure in mixed reality, or you actually have within media, the view in 3D. So those are the kind of 4 buttons and components that we're going to start using now. So I'm just going to pick up, just as I know that I don't have too long on this. So I'm going to pick up a gallery I made in the other app and just show you those components. So these are the, this is what I have in my SharePoint list at the moment. So all it is it's connected to 3D models, which is the gallery. And this itself is the view in 3D. So that's taken from this media and it's just this component here. So it's almost like adding an image into your canvas, except you're using this view in 3D as your image. And in here, if you look at my source, so the source determines where this comes from. Using a SharePoint list, I want to pick up what's in the attachments, but I just want to show the first one. So attachments, you can actually have multiple. So in order to get around that, all I'm doing here is I'm doing first this item.attachments, which is what's in the gallery, and then choosing the value. Oh, Vivek says apparently there's an emulator to test it on desktop. That is cool. That would be very useful because you have to constantly publish and figure out what's going on. You can actually, I think this one you can swivel around. So the view in 3D you can swivel around, but that's it. And yeah, too many views in 3D controls. I did not know that was a thing. Let's see if I can, if we filter it for the rowing boat, because I did want to show the one we just did. That would be cool. Okay. We called it rowing boat. Ah, there it is. So I actually didn't realize there was a limit to how many you could show, which is why it was not showing us that one there. So that's SharePoint in terms of showing images. The other thing we can do is use GitHub. So a couple of pointers on GitHub. You can use, you have to have a GLB format again, so make sure that's the case. Your Git repo needs to be public. And the file name, when you look at a file in GitHub, which I'll show you in a second, kind of looks something like this, well, for me anyway, for this particular URL that I have. Oh yeah, that wasn't actually my one. That's the one I took off the Microsoft documentation. But essentially, whatever the URL is, you need to remove the blob with the / either side, and then you need to also replace where it says github.com to GitHub raw.github user content. That's just the way that Power Apps needs the URL to look for it to work. So to showcase that, I have a couple of files in here. My GitHub repo is public. So if we kind of follow those steps, just to show you how easy it is, all I've done here is I've got a GitHub repo, added a file. I'm now going to go, let's use the blank app again, and then insert new screen. Going to go for the view in 3D. And then in my source, I'll first type in the URL as is. And it won't work. Then following those trusty steps, just so I can copy it, I'm going to replace where it says github.com with or.github. That's from here. I probably have a typo somewhere. I'm probably just going to copy and paste from my other app. Let's see if I can spot what it is. Oh, I didn't actually click on the item itself. So you obviously need to get to what you want to show. So if we actually click on, let's say, chair, then if I use that URL instead and do the same thing, so I'm just going to replace that first bit with this. Put that in quotations. I still don't like it.
Remove blob.
Oh yeah, remove blob. My very instructions. Thanks. Should work now. I think it's loading. Yay. And there's chair. Okay, so let's look at the other components that you have to use. So let's create a new screen. Let's go through those. So in mixed reality, you have view in 3D, a view in MR, view shape in MR, and measure in MR. So if I go for view in MR, when I click this button in my phone, whatever image I have in the source is going to appear in my room, right? But what I did in the app is I essentially said, well, you've got a bunch of images to start with. I want to go through from the image, and when I use that image, I basically set a variable. So on here, so I'll do it, going to do it here as a button. So I'm going to say whatever I've selected in this gallery is going to be my source. So actually we'll do it here. So here, if I select that button, I'm going to select the source file, let's say, as this items. So whatever image has been selected and the source. So when I click that, the source var is whatever the source is for the image that I want to show. And then the other thing I did is basically said, well, now I want to navigate. So in my app, it was just all in one place, but just to show you that, I then want to navigate to screen 3. So now when I head over to screen 3, I then want the source of this to be source var. And that way you can actually build an app that actually navigates between the different screens rather than having just this on its own without an image connected even. So from here, the other thing you can do is then add an image, which I also had in the app. And what you can do is you can set the source of the image to be photos.image URI. I'm going to copy again because I can't remember how I did this. So it's just, it's the first image because you can have multiple. So it's kind of similar to the attachments. So all I'm saying there, and I put a border around it just to make it clear that there is something there, is as soon as I take an image when I'm in that view in MR mode, then I'm going to store it here. Of course, there are multiple, so you could have a gallery and show multiple as well. So that's view in MR. Let's have a look at some of the other ones. You've also got the view shape in MR. And the thing that I did in this app is, if I click on this cube now, it will just do it. And it will just put that if I publish this to my phone. But you see here, you've got a shape width, a shape height, a shape depth, and you've got the unit of measurements. So I wanted to make this a little bit more interactive and let the user pick these things. So to do that, I'm only going to showcase maybe one of these measurements, but I set the shape width to be something on the screen that the user selects instead. So let's just put in I'm just going to use a text input here, make sure they select a number, and just to make it clear what I'm doing, this is going to be the, what things did we have? Height, width, length. Let's go for the shape width. Shape width can be selected by typing in here. So then to reference that, this is called text input 1. I just go to the component itself and I go to the shape width and I'm going to say, well, it's not 1. It's going to be the text, which is in text input 1, which just happened to be a number, but I'm just going to wrap it around a value. And therefore, your user can now select things and actually control what they're going to put on the screen. So do they want a shape with a width height of 1, or what do they want? Do they want to use feet, inches, centimeters? For the feet, centimeters, inches, I use a drop-down box and then just connected it in the same way. The last thing you can do on here is the measure in MR. So measure in MR, it can also do units of measurement and the measurement type. So in a similar way to the cube, you can put these as variables on your screen or input on your screen. But the thing it does do, which I discovered, is you can then take out the measurements. So to do that, I think I used a table, which is over here now, data table. And this data table is basically going to have the items as the measurements that come out of measure in MR, which is that component on the screen. And then you can edit the fields and you can add fields. So there's a bunch of different fields that you can add. So for the purpose of the app that I built and just a few things on there, I just think I had like height, length, and volume. So as you measure, I may have done it quickly on the screen and you may not have seen that, but as soon as I measured it, it then appeared in my table below. So I could then save that, put it in a different data source or put it in Dataverse or wherever I need if that's something that I want to do. So I think that's pretty much it for content. Has anyone got any questions? Take silence as a no. You see Larry's typing.
I was trying to give someone else a chance to ask a question for change because I tend to ask a lot of questions. That's all really awesome. I didn't quite realize how sort of drag and droppable it was, and also the fact that you can get those like details out and stuff like that. So probably the best questions I have is what have you found to be the best use cases of this so far? I like what you said about checking to see whether something can fit through a door. My in-laws live in a like a like a duplex sort of thing, and they got their sofa over the banister on the first floor because they couldn't fit it through the door. I was just kind of interested, what have you been able to use any cool MR stuff on any projects recently, or what do you see as being like the big use cases for this?
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't seen it or done it in a production ready application. I don't know of any production ready like client facing applications that use this, but the way the different use cases I've seen in the community is especially stuff for like kids. So being able to kind of gamify and put in various objects. It's basically like a Pokemon Go, but a very trimmed down version. And the other one is I have seen like mixed reality quite a lot in like furniture stores because it is such a common use case. I'm pretty sure if you're a furniture company, you would be able to build a very simple app just to showcase things.
So if you don't mind, I can share one use case where we used it.
Yes, please.
So this was a project for a manufacturing company, and they wanted to build like an inspection app. So it was more like a multi-step inspection process before they start doing regular audits on it. So we gave this option for them to, instead of taking photos, they can do this. I mean, they can take photos, but they can also do this, measure the area, because a lot of times they want to define that this is the space which is a part of this kind of inspection. It's not this other motor attached to it or this other gearbox attached to this. We just want to focus on this portion for this inspection. So they were able to measure the whole thing, and like the measuring thing also gave them the option to define that space then, that okay, we get the measurements plus we can define the space. So it wasn't a big use case of MR as such, but it definitely helped.
Yeah, I do think that mixed reality's gotten quite a boost recently with likes of Pokemon Go in the last couple of years, as well as if anyone caught it, was at Embass with what was it called, the thingy space in space, or the thing where James Cameron was like underwater with some dude.
Not sure. Code spaces.
So yeah, it's getting, I think. That was more virtual reality than mixed reality, but I think it's Titanic 2. That's the one, or Avatar 4. Any other questions for Jesse?
I've got one. Anyone knows? Has anyone got like good tools that they use to share their phone to the computer?
I use Teams, so you can just do Teams. Yeah, you can share your phone screen from Teams.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
that is cool. Thank you.
Exactly. That's how I did the demo. I did a session on this, and I was like, yeah, I've been doing a lot of that. iPads, phones, anywhere you can share your screens from Teams meetings and that.
That is cool. I'm going to try that. Thank you.
Cool. Well, if there's no more questions, then I want to say a big thank you to both our speakers. It's not an easy thing to get up and talk about something. I was also very impressed with all the Power Apps coding on the fly there, because I think I would have just crumbled into a little mess if I'd had to try and write Power Apps code or PowerFX on the fly. Give me Power Automate any day. Great with that, but yeah. So that was great, and Antti did a fantastic job as well with the project operation stuff. I certainly learned a lot. So big thank you to both our speakers. And if you are all right with it, if you want to come off mute and we can give the speakers a round of applause, I appreciate that Antti's left, but we'll do it anyway. So thank you very much. So yeah, big thank you to both of you. The next updates for our UGs, we'll probably look at doing another one August, September. Location TBC, we may be out in the woods by then, so we may actually be in a real building with people. Don't know, we'll see what happens. Again, we're always looking for topics, ideas, volunteers to come forward and to talk and to do something awesome. If you've not registered, please do register for our new user group. This is the QR code to get there, or you can find it on the Dynamics user groups inside of the community site. And also, if you would like to continue on tonight, if you've just not had enough of hearing me ramble on incessantly about nonsense with actual intelligent people giving presentations, you can join us in the virtual pub. We have a new virtual pub called the Speakeasy. If you'd like to drop in for a drink, if not, maybe next time. But it is an option. I'll just drop the link in the chat. But with that, I want to thank you all for attending, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.